You've never been truly cold, not once in your entire life. The coldest you've ever felt waiting for a bus, scraping ice off a windshield, walking from a parking lot in January was nothing. Your ancestors would have laughed at you for calling it cold. We're talking about -40 on the Eurasian Steppe. -40 is the temperature where exposed skin starts dying within minutes, where every breath causes pain. Where the wind doesn't chill you, it hunts you. A modern human dropped into an ice age winter without preparation would be dead before sunrise. And yet your ancestors didn't just survive it, they built houses in it. Let's start with what everyone gets wrong. The image most people carry is the same one: shivering cave people hunched around a small fire. That image is wrong, completely wrong. Your ancestors weren't surviving the Ice Age, they were engineering their way through it, with a level of technical sophistication that modern Arctic specialists have studied, replicated, and in some cases, struggled to improve upon. Here's the first thing that changes everything. They mostly didn't live in caves. At sites dating back hundreds of thousands of years across Russia and Eastern Europe, researchers found circular depressions dug deliberately into the earth, 6 to 8 feet deep, 12 feet across. Tool marks in the soil made the intent clear: these weren't natural formations, they were engineered. At 6 to 8 feet below the surface, ground temperature stays 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the air above. Your ancestors didn't fight the cold, they went below it. That single insight that the Earth itself was a thermal resource is the same principle behind modern geothermal heating. They worked it out without a physics degree, sitting in a frozen landscape 200,000 years ago. But going underground was only the first layer. At sites in the Czech Republic dating to 26,000 years ago, archaeologists found shelter walls built in 3 distinct layers, each one doing a specific job. Innermost animal hide with fur facing inward, trapping warm air against bodies. Outside that, dried grass and moss, wicking moisture away before it could freeze. Outermost, woven mats of reed and bark, blocking wind, but breathable enough to let moisture escape. This was deliberate. Someone figured out that the problem wasn't just cold, it was moisture destroying the structure from the inside, so they designed around it. The same logic sits inside the walls of your house right now. Vapor barrier, insulating foam, weatherproofing. Your Ice Age ancestors used hide, moss, and bark. The materials were different. The physics were identical. Now, here's where it gets genuinely hard to believe. Picture someone standing on the Ukrainian steppe 15,000 years ago, looking at the skeleton of a woolly mammoth, and thinking, I can build a home from this. That's exactly what happened. In Ukraine, archaeologists found houses built entirely from mammoth bones, skulls each weighing over 200 pounds set as foundation blocks, curved tusks bent into dome frameworks, hundreds of smaller bones packed into the gaps, the whole structure wrapped in stitched mammoth hide, thick enough to block wind, shaped so snow slid off rather than accumulated. When researchers built experimental reconstructions, the numbers surprised them. A properly built mammoth bone house, with only a modest fire inside, held interior temperatures 40 to 50 degrees warmer than the outside air. Modern Arctic shelters with electric heating and industrial insulation often perform no better. Stone Age builders, bones, hide, and stone tools, matching the thermal performance of 21st century Arctic engineering. The heating systems inside were smarter than they look. A central hearth provided primary heat. Smaller secondary hearths around the perimeter created warm zones for different uses. The layout wasn't random, it was planned the same way you'd plan the rooms of a house. On the treeless steppe where wood was scarce, your ancestors developed alternative fuels: mammoth dung, dried and prepared, bone processed specifically for burning. Chemical analysis of ancient hearth residues shows these weren't just thrown onto a fire, they were treated for specific heat outputs. These people were managing fuel like an engineer manages a resource. And then there was ventilation. This is the detail that still catches modern Arctic engineers off guard. Every warm enclosed space faces the same silent threat: moisture. Breathing, cooking, bodies, all of it generates water vapor. In sub-zero temperatures, that vapor freezes inside the walls. The structure fails from within. Your ancestors solved this with small openings near ground level, pulling cold, fresh air in, and larger openings near the apex, releasing the warm, moisture-laden air out. A passive ventilation system in a bone house. 15,000 years ago. The house is built, the fire is lit, the storm outside is irrelevant. Now it's dark, and something else starts to happen. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors slept differently than you do. Not 8 hours straight. 2 phases, 4 hours, a waking period of 1 to 2 hours, then 4 more until dawn. This wasn't disorder. This was the default human sleep pattern. It's been documented across dozens of historical cultures and confirmed in a 1992 experiment where modern volunteers removed from artificial light for a month automatically returned to the same two-phase rhythm, without exception. That waking hour in the middle of the night, inside a warm bone house while the steppe outside was frozen solid, that's when something remarkable happened. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying one of the last communities on Earth still living close to the original human pattern. What she found was striking. During daylight hours, roughly 80% of conversation was practical, logistics, hunting, resources. But at night, around the fire, that number flipped. 81% of nighttime conversation was stories. The campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, the original place where humans became fully human. The carved figurines found at Paleolithic sites across Europe, most discovered in winter shelter contexts. The cave paintings that defined our species, many created during the long months of winter confinement, by firelight, in bone houses. While the steppe outside was locked in ice, the art that made us human wasn't born in summer, it was born in the dark. None of this was accidental. Building a mammoth bone house took 2 to 3 weeks of intensive work by 8 to 10 adults, which means construction had to begin in late summer, well before conditions made outdoor work impossible. Analysis of tool wear and seasonal bone deposits at these sites confirms it. These weren't people scrambling to survive. They were operating on seasonal calendars, planning months ahead, executing with precision. Food storage followed the same engineering logic. In permafrost regions, underground chambers connected to winter shelters served as natural freezers, meat preserved and accessible throughout winter, regardless of storms above. The same physics as a modern refrigerator, implemented 20,000 years before electricity existed. Clothing used the same layered composite approach as the shelters. Multiple animal hides selected for different properties. The innermost layer, dense and close-fitting, trapped a thin layer of warm air directly against skin. The outer layer, heavier, oiled hide, shed wind and moisture. You'd be surprised how heavy a full Ice Age winter outfit was. Some reconstructions weigh over 15 pounds. They didn't just wear it, they maintained it, repaired it, passed the knowledge of making it down through generations. At the end of the Ice Age, as climates warmed and forests expanded, this entire knowledge system was gradually set aside. Not lost to catastrophe, just made unnecessary. The people who carried it moved into a warmer world and slowly stopped needing it. Modern Arctic engineers studying these remains have described being genuinely unsettled by what they found. Not impressed in a distant, academic way, unsettled. Because the solutions were so precise, so well-reasoned. You didn't invent warmth. You inherited it from people who had nothing but cold, time, and the absolute refusal to die. In the end, the most important lesson from Ice Age survival is not that early humans were tougher than us. Toughness alone would not have kept anyone alive at -40 degrees. What saved them was knowledge. They understood the ground before they understood geology. They understood insulation before they had words like vapor barrier or thermal mass. They understood fuel, airflow, moisture, storage, clothing, timing, and cooperation, because misunderstanding any one of those things could mean death before morning. That is what makes this subject so powerful. It reminds us that prehistoric people were not primitive versions of modern humans waiting for civilization to begin. They were already problem solvers, builders, planners, and teachers. They turned bone into architecture, darkness into storytelling, fire into community, and winter into a test that shaped culture itself. Modern life makes warmth feel automatic. We press a button, close a window, turn on a heater, and forget that comfort was once an invention. But every warm room we sit in carries a much older history. Long before electricity, concrete, or steel, someone looked at a frozen landscape and refused to accept the obvious answer. They did not escape the cold. They learned how to live inside it.